Is it recording? Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. My name is Fresha and I'm interested in learning how to live a happier, healthier, more creative life. And since you clicked on the video, I'm hoping that you and I can learn how to build the lives that we want together. So a while back, I was sent this poem and it's called You've Been 1,000 Different Women by Emery Hall. And reading through it, it really struck me. Dear sister, make peace with all the women you once were. Lay flowers at their feet. Offer them incense and honey and forgiveness. Honor them and give them your silence. Listen. Bless them and let them be. For they are the bones of the temple you sit in now. For they are the rivers of wisdom leading you toward the sea. I have been 1,000 different women. So reading this poem, it just got me, it's such a beautiful poem. And it just got me reflecting on all of the different women that I've been in my life, particularly in my teens and my 20s. One of the most fun things about being in your teens and 20s is the freedom and the thrill of expectation. You know, you get to try on different lifestyles and choices that represent potential future lives and future versions of yourself. You know, and these lie at crossroads and in choices like what you choose to major in school, what first jobs you apply for, the concerts you go to, the travel experiences that you save up for, the classes you take, the hobbies you develop, the social circles you keep, and the people that you date. And not all of these choices will stick or lead to a fully formed identity down the line, but you get to taste small samples of them, see if they work for you, and importantly, you get to learn from them. And if they don't work for you, you get to change your mind. And one of the blessings about getting older, hitting your 30s like me, is that you have the rich perspective from those periods of experimentation. You have a greater wealth of experiences from the experimentation that you did in your 20s, and subsequently a wealth of lessons learned. Sometimes those were fun lessons, and sometimes they were hard ones. With the hard lessons, I find that I felt them most acutely in the moment. Sometimes it felt like I was always going to be that insecure or depressed or unsure about my future. But with more time under your belt, there is a clearer sense of lessons learned from those 2 decades. You're able to look back at those past periods and past versions of yourself at an arm's length and with a sense of humor. So I thought today I'd run through some of the women I've been in my past, maybe what that looked like, you know, why I dabbled around as those women for a bit, and the lessons that they taught me. So whether in your 20s, you're in your 30s, whatever age, whether you're looking forward or you're looking back and you're just interested in listening in, let's head into the video. All right, so the first woman, in fact, I'm gonna call her a girl, okay? Because we all call her girl. That I was in my past, that I'm guilty of being, is a pick-me girl. If you're not familiar with what a pick-me girl is, first of all, what's it like? What's it like not ever having to think about this character in society who is persistently working to prove that she's cooler, that she's different from other girls, and in the process making the internet and the world a much more annoying place to inhabit? So really, for those of you who aren't familiar, a pick-me girl is a term used to describe a woman who seeks male approval and validation, often at the expense of other women. So she may find her identity and her worth by being chosen, and may go to great lengths to be picked, such as changing her values, personality, or who she is. And this need for validation may stem from a lack of self-worth. When I was but a wee teenager, I definitely had pick-me moments and qualities. I'm sorry. I'm like, yeah, I like drink beer, and like I smoke weed, and like I fucking listen to ska and death metal. I was just one of the guys, you know? All right, so why did I do it? Who was I trying to impress? For the record, those things aren't inherently definitive of being a pick-me girl, just to be clear. Like, I still drink beer, honestly though, not that much, because it kind of hurts my tummy. But like, yeah, I can fuck with like a good Mexican surf beer every once in a while. I guess I'll still listen to death metal if someone has it on. I name a ska band now. I don't know if I could. I don't know. God. So like the definition states, the drive behind a pick-me girl is a compulsive need for male approval and validation, and it is often driven by a lack of self-worth. I think that sense of insecurity and desire for validation is pretty common and normal for a young person trying to navigate their way through the world and strengthen strengthen their sense of self, especially when it comes to wanting to be attractive to whomever it is you want to be attractive to. I think the pick-me girl is quite interesting and distinct to heterosexual, like, gender relations. I'd be curious if there was a form of pick-meism in queer culture, so if you guys know, like educate me. I think that would be really fascinating. But in the case of the pick-me girl, for me, it came from two things. So one, I think it's just that normal insecurity that teenage girls feel when they first start dating, paired with two, the common experience of just not having a healthy way to express or process that insecurity. Like, when you're young, you just don't have the toolkit, you've got a lot of shit to learn, and so it comes out in really destructive ways. And for me, I deflected my insecurity onto other people, in this case, other women, instead of doing the work to develop my own sense of confidence internally. And while that's not okay, I think that's also, it's not uncommon. The lesson learned. Just to be clear up front, this is not going to be a video that goes into, like, explores the deep psychological states that drive maladaptive behavior, or like provides the social commentary that condemns it. There's already a lot of great content out there that already does that. And I hope we already know that being someone who tears down other women or other people in general is not a particularly strong, confident, or admirable person. But this is also not going to be a video that tries to assert that you're going to be the worst version of yourself, because, going back to the poem at the beginning, that's really not the case for most people, and that's not a belief that I can hold about people. Like, I really do try to see the best in people and believe that they want to be the best versions of themselves. A common theme we'll hear throughout this video is this: while I don't condone my younger behavior, when you get older and have more distance from that behavior, you can better understand why you acted in certain ways. And really deeply understanding why you acted in certain ways, especially unproductive or even harmful ways, is really important for processing it. Processing something is very different from just a flat out judgment of it. In the latter, you see qualities of yourself as either black or white, and it's really easy to skip over parts of yourself that need attending to or, like, further development. But in the former, processing, you're asked to have a little bit more grace towards your younger, more foolish self. So in the example of the pick-me girl, as I've gotten older and I've reflected on that past behavior, it's made me really aware of the woman I show up as when I ignore my insecurities or try to bury or suppress them, versus the woman that I show up as when I am mindful of my insecurities. The former is a version of myself that lets my insecurities get the better of me and drive my behavior. I feel imposter syndrome more frequently, and my mental health isn't that great. I'm not really that reflective of a person because I am avoiding confronting my behaviors and confronting harder emotions or experiences. And as a result, I don't really have the best relationships with the people around me and with myself, because I'm not developing the emotional intelligence I need to have those stronger relationships. On the flip side, the second version of me, this is like a devil angel shoulder thing, the second version of me is still insecure about things, but I would say I'm probably either less insecure or I just don't let my insecurities bug me as much. They might pop up, but I can let them go quickly or let them hang out without letting them affect my behavior. I don't need to react to them, essentially. I have a more gracious relationship with myself and deeper relationships with the people in my life, and I'm generally more reflective, calm, and my mental health is usually better. That's a big difference, and neither of them depend on insecurities going away, but how you deal with them. And I think that's ultimately the play of the pick-me girl. When you get older, insecurity doesn't go away, you just get better at managing it and not letting your behavior change as a result of it. So hopefully, I hope the pick-me girl as an archetype eventually grows up. I hope that's her identity, to grow out of that. I hope I did, at least, like, out of the most destructive parts of it. Okay, so the next woman I've been in the past, and probably still am, in fits and bursts today. This past version of myself is particularly relevant right now, especially if you, the viewer, live in the US, since we have an election going on. And that is the political know everything. Listen, I consume a lot of content, okay? I am like a mid-range, like middle of the generation millennial. I'm a 1991 millennial. So I really grew up on the internet. I've really worked on my relationship to being online in the past several years, but for my generation and all the ones below, it is just part of the fabric of our lives now. And I think it's At least for me, it's not really a matter of dropping out of it, but figuring out how to make it work in my life in a way that feels healthy and informative. That being said, like, I do listen to a lot of podcasts. I watch the news every single day for most hours of the day. I read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and that's fine. Listen, like, I actually really like that about myself. But it took me some time in my 20s to register that not everyone is going to love that about me, nor does everyone else need to know that about me. Like, that doesn't need to be my whole personality, and that doesn't need to be the center of all my relationships, and that does not need to be the first thing that I bring up in conversation at a dinner party. Who knew, right? Crazy. There was a real period in my life where I made that my whole personality, or at the very least an overwhelming part of my personality. Not only did I always need to showcase like my deep, like distinct granular knowledge of like all things political and economic, but in conversations I just always needed to have the last word. And if someone disagreed with me, I would become combative and condescending and just start spouting my little mouth off. And at the time it really felt like a moral imperative to me. I also think that's like a symptom of being really online, and like you can imagine the 2016 election, like I think like 2008, 2012 people were on the internet, but don't forget 2016 was really the first election that Americans experienced that existed alongside the algorithmic internet. So of course, I think it felt like a moral imperative for everyone who cared about politics. But the reality is not everyone is engaged in politics. Not everyone thinks about it or cares for it. Some people just want to live their lives, and that's okay. Like, you've got to respect people's boundaries and like leave them be. Trying to bulldoze people on topics or through frameworks that they just don't feel connected to doesn't make you a hero or politically persuasive for the pragmatists in the room. It just makes you someone that people don't really want to talk to. I don't really know who I was trying to impress with this behavior, because obviously it's just like really annoying behavior. So just moving along to lessons learned. I think like with being a political know-it-all, like there can be a good side and a bad side to this. Obviously, like the way I've worded it, political know-it-all is biased towards the negative, but on the good side, like I do think that political engagement comes from a real sense of curiosity. So if you're one of those people, like, I'm not trying to say that's a bad quality, certainly not. I actually think that's a really great quality. You know, it comes from a real curiosity, not just about the world, but about other people, like how they see the world, what they think, what their lived experiences are. And I think if you are also kind of a know-it-all, like I was, letting this side out can be good, because I think it keeps you engaged in the world in a healthy way. I think it keeps you connected to other people, and it exposes you to new ideas and other ways of thinking. But the bad side is when information gathering becomes information hoarding, which is definitely where it got to for me, especially when it's driven by things like fear, an inability to cope with the unknown, a sense of competitiveness, a sense of like moral righteousness, and so on. And it gets really bad, you can tell, when it starts to look like unnecessarily combative or condescending, when you're not listening that well to others, not being respectful of their lived experiences, or when you're only seeking out information that confirms, you know, your previously held biases instead of being open to new or challenging perspectives. I think ultimately being a political know-it-all, or really like any kind of know-it-all, comes from a desire to feel in control of a narrative, you know, to feel in control in a world that often feels out of control, and to have clear-cut categories or answers for complexity and nuance. And in reality, the world is really complex. Like, it's very big, it's multi-layered, it's globalized. There are so many things going on that just don't align with our lived experiences. And this is not meant to gaslight. Like, I do believe in having values and having morals and sticking to them, but also understanding that like those exist in like a universe of other universes. Every other person that you meet has their own lived experience, and when you show up in a condescending way that does not at least respect the fundamental fact that they have their own lived experience, I think is when you get into a little bit of trouble. You know, there are certainly ancient truths and themes to the larger human story, but when you insist on living in a world that can only be as big as the space you can hold in your head, you miss out on a lot of the world, and you resign yourself to a really small way of living and thinking. I don't know about about you, but that's not what I want. Like, actually, if anything, a small mind is one of the things I fear more than even a chaotic world. The goal here and the lesson is that you want to be able to nurture the good parts without indulging too much in the bad parts. I don't think confrontation is bad. I really don't. Some of the best relationships in my life are the relationships where we comfortably disagree with each other. But what keeps those relationships healthy is that we have a foundation of respect for each other, which includes having respect for each other's lived experiences, even if we ultimately disagree on the takeaways from those experiences. I think that just takes self-awareness and self-reflection and being honest with yourself about how you're showing up with people and how you're thinking about the world. I remember I had this high school teacher, incredible, like, bless public school teachers, like one of the best teachers, mentors I've ever had in my life. He was like our AP English teacher. And he, on the first day, I think this is probably freshman year, he like walks in and writes on the chalkboard, metacognition. And he asked us if we knew what it meant. And he was like, it's thinking about thinking. Like, you always have to think about how you're thinking. And you have to be really honest and really critical about that. The lesson here for all know-it-alls, not just political know-it-alls, is that it just takes a lot of practice and like self-awareness. I think it takes noticing what specific topics are particularly triggering for you. So me and my friends have those, and we call those no-fly zones. You know, practicing self-regulation, practicing drawing and holding boundaries in dynamic environments, because it is really easy to have political arguments in your head or when you're home alone, but all of a sudden when you're at a dinner party with like 5 other voices around a table, like that's a dynamic environment. You're not going to remember every single fact. You're not in like the safety and sterility of your own mind. You're clashing up against other people's worldviews, and being able to like observe yourself and maintain your self-awareness and your boundaries in that like really messy environment is important to still remaining like a politically engaged person without like overshooting and landing in this know-it-all territory where you write people off and shut people down. And so for myself, when I began to prioritize things like resilience and curiosity and openness and compassion before things, or at least alongside things like intellect or righteousness, I really started to notice myself grow out of my political know-it-all persona. And again, with all of these women, they still exist in you, they still exist in me. You learn how to live with them more harmoniously, and they don't drive your reactions as much as they used to in the past. I really liked this. I actually had a long list of women. I think I might make like another video on this just because I didn't really have the time to like break down the whole list. But you know, before we end this video, I did want to get to this last one. This last one is probably the most profound personality change I've experienced in my 20s. It was really challenging for me to let this one go. It was the result of a lot of therapy, a lot of inner work, and honestly just like really hard conversations with myself. And that is coming to terms with the fact that I'm not really, and never have been, a carry-on girl. Sorry. I have no idea who I was trying to impress with this one. I think this is one of those weird ideals that are self-imposed and just get internalized at a young age. You just can't find its origin point. Like, you hear it and see it enough times in other people that you can't remember when you picked it up as a standard for yourself. But then all of a sudden it's like 10 years later and you're in your closet jumping up and down on a piece of luggage that's like the size of a Reynolds Tupperware trying to get it closed, and you just like have a come to Jesus moment. You know, we've all had that experience, right? Those are the ones that get you. Those are the ones where you're like, they're insidious, they're just steeped into our culture and they get you. The ones that are subtly, not so subtly enforced by culture. Like, obviously that was a major joke in Meet the Parents, but like, you know what happened after that? I feel like dads and uncles are to blame here. Dads and uncles for sure. Like, they saw De Niro in that film, missed the irony of his character, and were like, yeah, that's my dude. I actually have an uncle who is basically Robert De Niro in Meet the Parents, and he is a carry-on dude. He is like if anyone shows up to his house and they have checked a bag, he is just silent with judgment. You could cut the air in the room with a knife Like it's so crazy. I don't know what is up with carry-on people. I hate carry-on so much. This is what female liberation looks like. Listen, pay attention. I hate carry-ons. I hate packing like I'm going for 3 days when I'm going for 10. I hate measuring my liquids. I hate going into the airport bathroom like I'm like backing up a dump truck so that like my backpack and like my roll-on, my suitcase can fit into the stall with me. I hate like wanting to grab a newspaper and some snacks at Hudson News and like wheeling my shit around with me. I'm like always terrified I'm gonna leave it somewhere and someone's gonna think it's like a bomb threat. Also, dude, I'm like 5 feet tall, so trying to put my carry-on in those overhead bins is treacherous. Like it is a full-on hazard for myself and the people around me. Someone is getting a luggage wheel in their eye. Like I just don't know when we as a culture decided that this is the way we were gonna be. Is that I feel like Europeans are probably carry-on people too. I don't know. Lesson learned. Listen, I love a checked bag, and it is I feel even just talking about this in the past 5 minutes, like I feel so free. That rant just made me feel so good. I love a checked bag unless I'm going for a 2 or 3 day work trip, which like I'll absolutely do a carry-on. I'm checking a bag. If my vacation is longer than a week, I'm checking a bag. I don't know the stats on lost luggage, and I don't want to know. I don't care. All I know is that it's never happened to me. Knock on wood. And one of the best things I have done as I have become a wise, reflective woman is accept this about myself. Not just accept it, I celebrate it. I am so fucking glad and relieved that I can finally let my checked bag freak flag fly. My worst fear is that I end up marrying a carry-on dude. It's probably gonna happen. If that ever happens, I'm gonna need to do some intensive inner child work for sure. I don't know what your position is here, if you're a carry-on person, if you're not, but hopefully this resonated for some of you. I know it might sound like I was kidding earlier, but it literally took me over 10 years to just finally throw my hands up in the air and just be like, fuck it, we're doing it live. Fuck it, we're checking a bag. So whoever you are, you do you. I really liked this. I have a fun list. I'm gonna do more. I just kind of had a lot of work to get to earlier today, and it cut my daylight time, so I only got to cover 3 today, but I'll do some more in the future because this is just fun. Like it's fun reflecting on past versions of yourself, like really silly, stupid things you did or said, and not like living in the crypt of anxiety that is your own mind. Like, do you guys ever wake up in the middle of the night and you like remember the most embarrassing thing you said or like the worst thing you ever did, and you're just in bed like, I need to wake up in 3 hours. I feel that used to happen to me all the time in my 20s. And it's not that you like lose all sense of shame or regret when you're in your 30s. Definitely not. You still look back at those times and realize that was shitty behavior or that was a shitty thing to say. But hopefully by this time you've changed your behavior enough and you feel confident in the person that you've become and that you've grown from that, such that you can look back at those times and kind of have a good laugh. So that is all we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to like and subscribe. I'd also love to hear from you guys. What are some past versions of yourself that you're grateful to have learned from and that have shaped who you are today? What are some of the lessons you've learned? So thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.